You're listening to a special presentation from Night of the Living podcast, Zoned Out with Joe and Freddy. Hey, Joe.
Joe and Freddy. That kind of rumbled into the drum piece of the intro there. It's kind of cool. Joe and Freddy.
We're so dramatic here. So,
Yes.
So Joe and I, before the show, we were just talking about the Civil War and realizing that we both were like, oh, there's a lot. Like, I watched Ken Burns when it was first out, and I learned a bunch and forgot everything. And then Joe said he's only seen a few episodes. So we're cobbling together at the beginning of this. We were like, well, let's look and see, little details that this episode brought to mind. You kind of want to know a little more. So we did some last minute Googling, just to make sure that we weren't idiots, and we did okay.
Yeah, it was kind of fun stuff, little factoids we can pull up and learn about. And yeah, good stuff.
Although I would say,
at least according to the internet,
this particular story isn't like heavily involved in the facts of the Civil War. It's more just an emotional story, the Passerby,
right?
Than it is
like a lot of allegory.
Yeah,
definitely.
This aired October 6th, 1961, which was 100 years after the beginning of the American Civil War in 1861. Nice round number.
Yeah.
This is the second of 4 episodes directed by Elliot Silverstein. He did The Obsolete Man, The Trade-Ins, which we haven't gotten to yet, and Spur of the Moment. Those are in the future. Written by Sterling. Music composed by Fred Steiner. This is the 3rd episode that Steiner composed the score for. The others are King 9 Will Not Return and 100 Yards Over the Rim. And he's going to come back to compose music in 4 episodes in season 4. Which most people don't like that season very much if they're hardcore fans. I don't hate it. The setting of this episode is the time period April 1865, specifically following the surrender at Appomattox. The location is a dirt road littered with debris of war, representing a transitional space between life and the afterwards. The atmosphere is quiet, reflective, and eerie. It's a province that's neither north nor south, really. We don't know. We think it's in the south, maybe by a minute, because that's the dialogue we get from the war bride who kind of pushes the story along. So we're like, okay, this is a Confederate area. But you don't feel that you're in the deep, deep, deep south. And I think that's important because I think Sterling was trying to tell a very neutral kind of story here.
It's interesting. I wasn't sure. I don't know where the Deep South or how you would represent the Deep South. I mean, it wasn't like a plantation, but it did seem like a big mansion. So I kind of got that kind of a Southern vibe, and maybe the trees and such had that kind of look to it. But
yeah, to me too. Yeah. And as I was reading about it, and listening to commentaries and stuff, to me, the first viewing of this felt much like, I'm like, oh, this is like Louisiana or Mississippi or somewhere with slave quarters and that sort of thing. But he keeps it just vague enough that you're not sure what her life was like before the war, other than she was a lady of some means, and that her husband was liked to play guitar. Those are the things we know.
She talks about the land, and the trees, and so they had some money. They had a big old house, and
she never mentions slavery.
No,
that conversation doesn't come up.
Right.
But again, War of Northern Aggression vibes from her.
Right. Well, which we'll get into all of that too, and we got some choice quotes from her.
Only 6 credited roles in this. This is another episode that has multiple actors from Star Trek. James Gregory, who was Dr. Tristan Adams in the first season's Dagger of the Mind. There's so many Twilight Zone Star Trek connections.
I was trying to remember why I remembered him or why he looked so familiar.
Yep. Joanne Linville, who was the Romulan commander in the Enterprise incident, is in this. She's one of our leads. Rex Holman, he was Morgan Earp, Inspector of the Gun. And this is the guy who I think turns up in silhouette on horseback, if I remember right, was that actor. Spectre of the Gun. This guy was known for playing gunslingers and stuff, but you remember they had the Enterprise away team had to participate in the shootout at the OK Corral.
Oh, yeah. This is Rex Holman you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, the guy on the horse, I think, is David Garcia.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Charlie Constable's the one who she sees first. Yeah, yeah. We'll get to all that.
Yeah. Well, wait, hold up. Rex was. I got my notes.
Rex was
he was
Charlie
Charlie.
Constable.
He was
Oh,
Charlie.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm with you. I got them mixed up. Again, I'm getting old. What are you going to do? And then
you have to translate all the notes. Yeah.
He wasn't just in that episode of Star Trek, but he was in the movie, the fifth one, Final Frontier, the one everybody hates.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was John. I'll just call him John. I can't remember how he pronounced it in the movie. It was J''ONN. Jeon.
Nice.
So our characters, we have a Confederate soldier who has an injured foot. Second and last appearance by James Gregory. He was the Air Force general in Where Is Everybody? That episode with the astronaut in the ISO chamber. Yeah.
Yeah.
He, in the episode, I couldn't tell this, but apparently his belt buckle is upside down and it's a Confederate States belt buckle. And that was supposed to indicate, something about the nature of his true being.
Interesting.
He also carries a weird hexagonal guitar.
Yes, his Git box,
which was in the Civil War, guitars became really popular because they were portable and they helped with morale. And this character made his own.
Yeah,
but he can't tune it properly, apparently, either.
Okay, there's a great moment. We'll get to it, but it was. I don't think it was intentionally funny, but I cracked up. We'll get to it. Yeah,
I can't wait. I think I know what you're talking about. We have Lavinia Godwin. She's the Civil War widow. Joanne Linville. 50s to 80s, pretty popular on TV, turned up a lot. She was the one I mentioned that was the Romulan commander on Star Trek, the first female Romulan commander in Star Trek history.
Nice.
Linville, she was also Mark Ruffalo's mentor. So at the Stella Adler Conservatory.
That's cool.
Yeah. And when he was on Inside the Actor Studio with, if you remember back in the day, I don't know if you watched that James Lipton show with the blue cue cards.
Yes. Yeah, totally. Yes.
I love that show.
What is your favorite word? What is your least favorite word?
But he talks about working and learning from her in that episode. I don't know if those are out there on YouTube or where you can find them, but those are always a good time.
Very interesting.
And she says the line, "This place is all I have," in the story. And you feel it. It's true. Charlie Constable. This is the one, Rex Holman, who I got mixed up with David Garcia. He was killed in Gettysburg in this story, shot in the head. Roy Baker is his real name. He was Roy Eugene Baker before he became Rex Holman. I think I see why. It's a much manlier kind of thing going on there. He was an American character actor. He's known for playing sneering, psychotic Western gunslingers and henchmen. And that's again the guy who was in those episodes of Star Trek and the terrible Star Trek movie.
What kind of date is that? So what are you known for in your acting? Oh, sneering, cocky assholes.
He'd probably say gunslingers.
Shoot people. Psychotic.
He was. If you've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. The Quentin Tarantino
I've
movie?
Never actually watched it. I really want to, but I haven't watched it yet.
I love it. He's in it in archive footage when you've probably seen this clip is shown often when they talk about the movie, but it's they took Leonardo DiCaprio, the character Rick Dalton he plays in the movie, and they replaced it was Burt Reynolds in the original role. They replaced him with the Leonardo DiCaprio character, but the guy who he shoots is Rex Holman.
Oh, wow.
So
that's cool.
A fun, more recent connection. And he says the line too. He says, when Holman comes on screen, he says, "That guy was an asshole." And Quentin Tarantino got permission from the family to say that.
Aw.
And that's kind of considerate for a guy who isn't usually too considerate.
Right? Yeah. Thoughtful from
the jerk.
DiCaprio.
Tarantino, I love his movies, but he sometimes he can be a little bit of a jerk, it seems.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I see it. You don't have to tell me. Whenever I mention I like Tarantino, somebody has to send me a message and be like, he's problematic.
He is. I do like enjoy a lot of his films, but it's the whole artist and art thing.
Yeah.
Really.
I think it comes down to just, not to ramble on about it, but I think it just comes down to kind of a rudeness in a weird social, almost like not an understanding. I don't want to say Quentin Tarantino is on the spectrum, but it's that kind of vibe where I don't think he realizes it when he does it necessarily. Not that it's forgivable or making excuses, but
or that he just doesn't care. And I think that's part of the and I think there's an interesting quirk for a lot of people who make art or media of any type like that, where they're kind of, I don't know if they think of themselves, but I think oftentimes their brains operate outside of this is how you're supposed to be. And that can be for good reasons or for bad reasons. Like they might do terrible things and it's just because they think differently,
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking of specifically two things. There's the controversy about him pushing Uma Thurman to the point of injury when they made Kill Bill. And then there's the Paul Dano controversy where he said he thought Paul Dano was the weak link and There Will Be Blood. And he got a lot of pushback because Paul Dano is beloved. And Quentin Tarantino is not. As Quentin Tarantino movies are beloved. I don't know if he's beloved. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't have a lot because I think I like his podcast he does and everything, I think he's got an interesting perspective, but I understand why some people are not fans of his personality.
It's like somebody who I can understand it and appreciate the knowledge that they have, whereas their personality, I don't want to be around that person. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how that would go down. Might bring out the worst in me to be in a room with him. Make some bad jokes. The Union Lieutenant, back to the episode, Passerby. I could talk about Tarantino all day. Union Lieutenant, an eerie figure on horseback only seen in silhouette. That's David Garcia. And I mentioned him because it's such a spooky moment for the actor. You don't really see his face. He's in silhouette.
Yeah, until one moment. Yeah,
one brief moment. That was shocking for that era, I think.
Right. And when I was like, oh, really? That's okay. It was kind of like, well, it wasn't as shocking as, you'd see today as.
Well, if it were in color, it might've been a different story.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I could see that.
Judd Godwin is Lavinia's husband, who we presume is deceased from what she's saying. Although clearly he turns up at some point because I have an actor for him, Warren Kimmerling.
Oh.
Yep. Warren Kimmerling, a Broadway actor who transitioned to Hollywood, had a long career in television, and he was on the SAG board of directors for 18 years.
Wow.
He was Wild Bill in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the army guy who, I don't know if he was in charge of the installation. Have you seen Close Encounters, the Spielberg movie?
Oh, love Close Encounters. Yeah.
Do you remember the guy who kind of patrolled near the end of the movie? There's like where they're setting up where they can play the music to the alien.
Yeah.
He's one of the army guys there. I think he was like the head of that group who patrols around.
Interesting.
You'll know when you see it. You'll know him. If you revisit it.
Yeah.
Or if you're a hardcore fan, you might remember this guy.
Quick interjection with that. If you ever want to see it in a super fun setting, if you ever go to Devil's Tower, which features prominently in that movie, there is a campground that you can stay at that shows that movie every single night.
Really? That's awesome.
Yep. It's super awesome.
Amy's never seen it. So like, it's one of those movies where, I would love to show it to her in that kind of environment. I don't think I can get out there, but that's a good idea.
I have such a nostalgia for that. It's really cool. And to see it, like, to be watching the movie like on a projected screen and then turn your head and look and go, oh, that's right over there.
Wow.
Like that's a major chunk of my childhood. I kept wanting to find the airfield and was kind of disappointed as an adult to go walk around it and go, that was the movie.
So did you stay at the campground too?
Yeah. So at one time, I've gone to visit a couple times, but one time I went with my family and my kids and everybody, and there's a pool and it's a fun little campground. But the actual place is so much fun too. If you're a fan of climbing around, and I say bouldering, but no, that's not the right phrase for it. I'm not talking about climbing like underneath boulders and stuff. But if you like climbing over rocks and stuff, and just I don't know, it's a great place to go hiking and also kind of climb around a lot as a kid or an adult.
Yeah, I feel that way about Hocking Hills. Although now I don't know how much of it I can handle. There's a place there called Rock House. If you look it up, Rock House is a weird little hike and climb. But if you're into that, I don't know if I could handle it at this age. But
I will definitely look that up. I'm a big fan of all that stuff. That's cool.
Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. It's beautiful. It's prehistoric looking. Speaking of history, President Abe Lincoln turns up in this episode. Austin Green. This isn't the first time that Austin Green has played Abraham Lincoln, and when you see him, you know why. He looks like Abraham Lincoln.
It's not Brian Austin Green from 90210, whatever it was.
What if they're related? Could be. Who knows? He played Abe Lincoln in Black Friday back in 1955. This is the second time on screen he appears as Lincoln, but then he does it again. Prior to this in 1957. So this is the third time he was in the Story of Mankind as Lincoln. There's a soldier, and I just want to mention this briefly because it's a celebrity kind of cameo, but he's covered his face with a handkerchief. So you only see the eyes, but if you watched a lot of MASH, you know the eyes. It's Jamie Farr, who was Klinger.
I love that.
Yeah, he makes sure to really get into frame and pull focus too. Even though he's got the handkerchief on, you're like, oh, there's somebody's under there. And he wasn't even famous yet, right? You know, but he was smart enough to get right into frame and really make sure you could see those eyes and those eyebrows and everything.
I love that. Love it.
And in fact, like the ending of this episode, if you watch MASH, there's an episode called Follies of the Living, Concerns of the Dead. Came out in 1982. Klinger, he's sick with a fever, and the only one who can talk to this character called Private Weston, who later walks down a road in the episode, and, you know, ghostly things. I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to spoil too much about this. I'd say this episode has really great poetic dialogue in it. Some of Serling's best dialogue, maybe. I don't know who else assisted in the writing on that, but it's real good.
Yeah. It seems very time and place appropriate, at least what I imagine, you know?
Yeah, they even have the right pitch of voice for Abe Lincoln, too. Like, some people get it wrong. Famously, Daniel Day-Lewis performed Lincoln with a very high-pitched voice, and this actor clearly did his homework, too, because he also has that soft, gentle voice. Which is really cool. I enjoyed it. The Battle of Yellow Tavern kind of comes up in a roundabout way. I don't want to give away too much because I think I'm going to pass it off to you.
Sure.
And then we'll get into the deets.
You want to toss some factoids in there as we roll through?
Yeah, because that's the way I don't spoil shit.
I love it. All right. So episode starts out and we have a group of pretty obviously Civil War soldiers, if you're familiar with their uniforms at all, walking and staggering down a road as Rod Serling narrates. This road is the afterwards of the Civil War. It began at Fort Sumter, South Carolina, and ended at a place called Appomattox. It's littered with the residue of broken battles and shattered dreams. Which goes really quick, and then it starts into our scene. And actually, we do get a bit more summary later with the usual introduction, but it's quite a bit later, which is kind of a surprise. So he splits up his narration. So as these folks are walking down this this road, everybody's kind of in a daze. They've got a 1,000-yard stare. And a Confederate Army sergeant is walking down, aided by a crutch, and he's got an old dirty bedroll and a homemade guitar, and he's kind of limping along. And he comes to, I love the way Wikipedia described this, an antebellum mansion. And I was like, all right, well, that says South to me.
Well, antebellum, would be one of the freshest antebellum mansions because that just means after the war.
Oh, right. That's funny. I didn't realize what the term meant.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And there's a woman in a Southern Belle in a rocking chair at the top of the front steps. And she's just out there watching the people go by, fanning herself. And he pauses and asks her for some water, and she welcomes him to it. There's a little dialogue, and he says, his voice is really super crisp and resonant too. He goes, ma'am, do you mind if I have myself some of your water, ma'am? And she says, oh, please. And he says, thank you. And he goes over to the well and kind of draws up some water and kind of acknowledges her again as he takes a drink and looks at the tree nearby, and he says, beautiful once, wasn't it? And she kind of looks down forlornly, and you get this idea of like, she was beautiful once, or the land was beautiful once, or the house was beautiful once. And he goes, the tree, I mean, ma'am. And so you get this idea of like, already there's some metaphor going here of it was beautiful once, and now it's what it is. And she says, it was once very beautiful. And he says, war claims a lot of victims, men, animals, and God's own beauty. Ma'am, would you mind if I sat here for a spell and rested a bit? She says, not at all. He says, thank you. So very like what I always imagine as a traditional Southern interaction of politeness, very, formal kind of thing. But, she's out there in the front of the house sweating, and he's been walking for a long time. And
by the way, antebellum means before war, not after war. Sorry. I had it backwards.
Ante. Okay.
Yeah. Ante is.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And also like it's used to glorify. I just wanted to note that people use it less now because it's usually associated with glorifying the pre-war era.
Right. Which there's a country group, I believe, used to be called Lady Antebellum, and they changed their name to Lady A, if you're familiar with that band.
Yeah.
For that reason. So interesting.
Makes more sense that it means before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, right, that's why it's not a great. Yeah.
And wasn't the Dixie Chicks changed their name to the Chicks too?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Try to dissociate themselves with glorifying the Confederacy.
That's I have to applaud that. That's pretty awesome.
I'm with you.
So by the way, we before this episode, Freddie, we both clarified you're from Ohio, I'm from Minnesota, so neither of us are real familiar with the Deep South or the Southern perspective of like looking at the Civil War as the Northern aggression. So we can only represent our own perspectives, but it'll be interesting to see how they kind of approached this episode and the way they portrayed everything.
We're Yankees.
This part, yeah.
So we're biased.
Yanking it away. So the sergeant pulls out his homemade guitar and asks if he can strum a bit on his git box. And she says she doesn't mind at all. And that her husband used to play guitar. This is the moment where, no, it's all good. This is a moment where I feel bad, but I started laughing out loud. He asks where he is now as he's kind of strumming along, and she goes, he was killed, and he strums this off chord like key, and it's like frong.
It sounds homemade.
Yeah. So I don't think it was intended to be funny, but it was just like one of those, the timing moment was just hilarious. But so the actual dialogue goes, he's like, what happened to him? And she goes, he was killed. And he goes, Frank. She goes, Yellow Tavern with General Stewart. And he goes, I'm sorry. And then kind of starts strumming again. So you said there's something about Yellow Tavern?
The Yellow Tavern was in 1864, so it's near the end of the war. It was Richmond, Virginia, and it's a nasty bat for the Confederacy. It's a real bad loss. Major General Phil Sheridan, he outnumbered the Confederate cavalry, and that was Jeb Stuart. I'm sure you've heard the name. I think there may have been a statue or two of him floating around at one point. He was mortally wounded and died the next day. This and Appomattox, the Battle of Yellow Tavern and Appomattox, those are like indicators of the end for the Confederacy.
Got it.
Yeah.
So as he's strumming again, she says with kind of bitterness in her voice and tears in her eyes, brand new gray and gold braid and 1,000 flags, trumpets and drums, nothing but trumpets and drums. Beat the Yanks in a month. That's what they said. Beat the Yanks in a month. How wrong they were. And we stood in our summer dresses and cheered them on, and threw flowers. Felt so grand. Not many tears, just a few, because we were so sure they'd all be coming back just as they left. How wrong we were. And that's all kind of drawn out. She's reminiscing, but you can see as kind of her arm movements, she's got a lot of bitterness and frustration about this situation, rightfully so. I mean, her way of life has just been upended and her husband's dead. So
Sergeant starts playing Wonderwall just to accompany her misery.
So, which is funny. I never thought of that as a sad song, but
well, it's more, I think people get irritated with Wonderwall. But
oh, really?
It's just something that everyone who learns to play guitar learns kind of first.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. That's the victory song for the Minnesota Loons.
Really?
The Minnesota United. Yeah.
Yeah. I still
Loons.
like the song. I don't care. You could play the fuck out of Wonderwall every day. I don't care.
I never got Oasis.
Yeah.
All respect, but it doesn't do it for me. Anyway, so after this, she goes to stand up and kind of staggers back against the rocking chair, and he's like, "Are you okay, ma'am?" And she's like, "Oh no, I had a fever. I'm just left me a little weak, you know." So as they're kind of sitting there, they watch as soldiers, hundreds or thousands of them, go by, and they're both Union and Confederate, passing by the house and continuing on down this road. And Lavinia kind of pines and wishes that her husband Judd were among them. And she weeps and pleads with the sergeant to play, then sing loudly to drown out the sound of her crying. And he's like, "Oh, ma'am, you don't want me." And she's like, "Just play." You know, it's very kind of overwrought. And she wants to drown out the sound of her crying in the footsteps of the soldiers. So he obliges her and sings a song, and she kind of recognizes this song and begins to sing with him. And it's a song that it's like what is it? Black is the color of my black is the color of my true love's hair. It's a kind of a morose song, but I guess it's an old folk song.
Yeah, a lot of these songs of the era are just soldiers longing for their loved ones, and pretty sad stuff. Yeah.
So she's kind of crying, and he's singing the song, and then she kind of recognizes it and starts to sing along with him a little bit. And it's at this moment that Serling continues his narration, and I think we see him appear here. He says, "In just a moment, you will enter a strange province that knows neither north nor south, a place we call the Twilight Zone." And we go to a commercial break. Yeah.
Cigarettes, Chesterfields.
So we come back from a commercial break, and it's hard to tell because the sergeant has, like, it looks like he's removed his coat and stuff, and he's like chopping at some wood, and you're like, is this the same day? Is this a few minutes, or like has it been? And maybe that's intentional, which we'll discuss later.
Yeah.
But I guessed it was maybe an hour or two or something. Some minutes have passed by. He's probably relaxed a little bit and is preparing some wood for her or something. And so they're kind of talking back and forth, and all of a sudden she's saying something, and she goes, "Charlie." She recognizes Charlie Constable, a person from her area, and rushes out to meet him. And she's like, "I heard you've been shot in the head at Gettysburg," and he doesn't even acknowledge her. Like, he's staring straight ahead, and he says he needs to keep moving, and he doesn't need these things that he's carrying, and he's kind of starts shedding his bag and his stuff. And she holds him really tightly as she's talking to him, and she can see it. She's like clinging to him, like, "Oh, thank God you're alive. Your wife will be so, happy to see you. I wouldn't even let you go if I were with you, but you should come back and visit, and we should talk." I mean, just very, and it almost plays as like she like wants him, but I think it's really intended to be a passionate embrace of like you were my neighbor and we all got along. Friend, like
it gives her hope that her husband might be alive.
Right, exactly. And I think that she's got that inspires, or that's her inspiration. And it's kind of lovely, this connection that she feels to him, but he's just distant. And at one point he kind of turns his head to her and acknowledges when she's been holding him. And then he's like, I'm sure, Lavinia. And then just kind of not drunkenly, but like in a daze, continues walking. And she's just kind of like, oh, excited, but confused. And as she starts picking up the stuff that he dropped, she picks up his cap and she's looking at it and he's like, ma'am, and the sergeant. And she's like, there's blood on his cap. Like he was shot and there's blood on his cap, like kind of confused. So we fade again, and this is sometime later in the evening. Looks like the lights are lower, the light is less, and the sergeant is continuing to chop wood and talks about how he's really good with wood, whether it's chopping it or whatever. And they continue to reminisce.
I'm a woodsman, if you understand my meaning, miss.
I know how to swing it if you catch my meat, ma'am. So he talks about growing up, and it's kind of sweet. They're just kind of telling their stories, and she's kind of she's either messing with something for sewing or something, but just kind of, you can see she's kind of excited, I think energized by the fact that she saw Charlie. And in having these conversations, he's talking about how he grew up and how his dad made fun of him. Ebby is what he called him. And saying, you're just going to be one of those no good, what do you call him? Like a not a bard, but a
troubadour.
Troubadour, yes, thank you. You're going to be a no good troubadour, and he's kind of they're joking about that with his dad, and how his dad was so proud when he became a soldier and went off to war, which, man, that's a whole thing.
Misguided.
Yeah. And which, I mean, pride in your child, great, but like also,
more fear for me. I think I would be more in a position of just concern and constant terror. I'm not a parent.
Yeah.
But I don't, if I had children, I don't know how I would feel about them volunteering to go to war.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard as a parent. I've got 3 kids, and if that ever were a situation, I think that there's an element of pride of like, this is a person who's an adult and making adult decisions. And like, I'm proud of them for standing up for something they believe in, but also like, this is, war is never it's a fool's errand. And like, it's all about control from the nations. And anyway, I'm not going to lecture anybody. I'm not going to shame anybody for joining the military.
Oh, I mean, like I come from a military family, like, and not like, where people were like, oh, we have a long tradition of being in the military. It just so happens that a lot of the men in my family were drafted, and some of them loved it. And my dad's brother went back several times. He was in airborne, and he just liked, I guess, jumping out of airplanes. And
sure.
And my dad, on the other hand, was Vietnam vet who saw a lot of horrible stuff and came back more liberal than he probably was when he left. So it's interesting, like, and I'm proud of all of them. You know what I mean? Despite, it's not like, I don't want somebody to misconstrue what I'm saying about like my emotional concerns if I had a child and letting them, go to an active war zone. I have a lot of respect for people that are in the service, it's just war itself. It's the war part of it. It's the concern of losing a loved one is what I'm talking about.
It's the war, and it's the motivations and the leadership that I don't care for.
Right.
It's the people who fight in it. Like, that's, man, holy crap.
Yeah. They're just trying to keep each other alive.
All the respect. Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So they're reminiscing back and forth, and she starts talking about how her husband used to play guitar and sing at night. And she's kind of reminiscing and talking about how even the crickets would quiet down. And he's like, oh, I bet they did. And And then you can see her face kind of turn, and she says, then the Yankees came like blue locusts. They had to eat away at the trees, the land, and everything on it. I owe them for much, for our house, our land, our trees, for everything that was, including my husband's life. I owe them for much. She's got that, starts weeping again, and he says, ma'am? She says, He goes, why don't you go away from here? This place is no good for you, which we'll come back to that. She says, why? This place is all I have. And as she says that, she kind of pounds on the tree, like smacking it, like almost like this is mine, this is my place. Unfortunately, it's a fake tree. And as she does, you hear this tonk tonk.
You know what's funny is I didn't catch that at all.
I didn't until the second or third viewing. Like I watched this a few times.
Yeah.
And as she does it, I'm like, oh, that's a clearly hollow tree. And then she says, Sergeant. And he says, yes, ma'am. And this is where she starts to get dark. She's like, what do you suppose happened to that Yankee who killed my husband? Do you suppose he's marching home to his kin now? His own kin now? Do you suppose he's laughing and singing and telling all his neighborhood about the rebels he's killed? All the bullets and all the heads he shot them through? And he goes, no, ma'am. I don't reckon anything like that at all. And you let that kind of poison on your mind, you'll die from it, ma'am. And she says, and her eyes go kind of frantic, and she goes, I got a gun inside. He's like, a gun? And she's like, uh-huh. It's an old shotgun. And I keep thinking about how someday, some moment, a Yankee is going to come by here, and I'm going to take out that gun, and I'm going to aim it at him. And I'm going to aim it at him, but first I'm going to tell him that he can consider this the last shot of the Civil War, a bullet in exchange for the one my husband took. And the sergeant, to his credits, gets upset about that. He's got a real stern face, and he goes, no, ma'am. I don't want to hear no more talk about butchery and bloodshed. There's hundreds and thousands of our men and boys that were killed and maimed. And then Mr. Lincoln murdered. No, I don't want to hear no more about. And as he's talking, there's a veteran, another soldier comes up on horseback, and this is the person in shadows. And there's something about this character that comes up where they just kind of stop. And that could have been like a polite company thing, but also I think there's something, he's in shadows in this part. And
I think that's one of the better shots of the series too.
It really is. I mean, he's in silhouette, and it's just perfectly framed that you can see everything around him and behind him, but he's just it's a soldier on horseback, and it's all black. It's very spooky. And so this lieutenant, we'll find out later it's a lieutenant, is on horseback and asks for some water, but remains in the shadows. And the sergeant says, well, there's a well right here, and I'm sure the lady of the house wouldn't mind if you had some. And so the sergeant asks if he's traveling far, and the lieutenant says, just up the road, but I've been on it a long time. You too? And he says this, and it's very clear this man is not Southern. Right. He has no Southern accent. In fact, he sounds very, Northern at this point. And so it's very clear that this is not a Confederate soldier, it's a Union soldier from the North. And as he's saying this, at the same time, Lavinia kind of startles, and she runs into the house. And so the camera kind of pulls in and focuses on the sergeant and the lieutenant. And the sergeant says, hey, I recognize you. Yeah, a shell exploded and tore off half my foot, and you came by with a patrol of Union soldiers and stopped and treated me. You stopped the bleeding. And he's like getting excited because he recognizes this guy suddenly. And they both kind of smile. Like you can see in the shadow even the smile and hear it in his voice. And he's like, I remember, And the sergeant is really excited about this, and he turns to introduce the lieutenant to Lavinia, and the camera pulls out again, and Lavinia's at the top of the stairs with a gun pointed at this guy. And she's got that shotgun and is pointing at him. She says, and he goes, "Ma'am." The sergeant says, "Ma'am." And Lavinia says to the lieutenant, "You'd best pay heed to the sergeant's gratitude, because it's the last gift you'll ever get. The last one on this earth, this I promise you." And Sergeant says, "Let me have the gun, ma'am." And Lavinia cocks the shotgun, which I was like, "You do that with a shotgun?" Apparently that style when you do. And the lieutenant says, very calm, no emotion in his voice, says, "This is your pleasure, ma'am?" And she says, "And duty, a little of both, perhaps." A lot of vitriol in her voice. And he says, "Then you'd best get on with it." And the sergeant goes, "Ma'am, the lieutenant here tried to save my life." Another interesting point. We'll come back to that. And she says, "You thanked him, Sergeant. Now, if you'll be kind enough to step aside so I can thank him for a few other services." And the sergeant lunges forward and knocks the gun out of her hands, but she really quickly picks it back up and points it at the sergeant points at the lieutenant while the sergeant is still on the ground, and shoots the lieutenant on the horseback. And he hardly moves. And you see like a smoke go in front of him, but that's it. And she's like, I couldn't have missed you." And the sergeant grabs the gun out of her hands, and she's like, stunned. I couldn't have missed you." And the lieutenant says, "It doesn't make any difference whether you did or whether you didn't." And he's just very monotone. And so the sergeant, stirring there for a second, he goes, "Wait a minute. I remember that the man, there was a shell that exploded over my head while you were tending to me. And there was hot steel spraying all over the place and into your eyes." And he said, "I remember you clawing at your eyes and screaming, 'I'm blind, I'm blind.'" And the lieutenant says, "Well, that doesn't make any difference now either," and asks for the water again. The sergeant says, "Yeah, of course." And goes over and grabs some water and lifts it up to him. And you can see the lieutenant kind of reaching out for it, but not sure how to grab it, like he can't see it. And as he lifts it and takes a drink and gives him the ladle back, and the sergeant lifts up a lantern, and we see that his right eye is just totally disfigured. Now, it's spooky, but in the makeup at the time, you can actually see his eye in the midst of all that makeup, and he's clearly looking down and at the camera. Like if you pause it, you can see the reflection in his eye. So like he still has both his eyes. So I don't know if they intended to just make it not too graphic. Obviously, it's the 60s. But it's, he's got some significant scarring on his face.
For
so
TV
it's spooky.
at the time, it was pretty.
Right.
It's something you'd see in like a Universal horror movie or Hammer or something. But I think on TV at the time, it was kind of a whoa.
Yeah, like ooh.
Yeah.
And they both kind of startle back, and so he brings the light back down, and the lieutenant wishes them both well, each individually, and continues on his way saying, "And this too shall pass. And this too shall pass. Wait and see. Wait and see." And it fades out to commercial break.
By the way, that quote I thought was from the Bible. It's not. It's from a Persian poet. Yeah. A 13th century tale of a Persian king.
Interesting.
Solomon's Seal in 1852 is a more modern retelling of it. And then Abraham Lincoln quoted that in 1859.
Interesting. I didn't realize where that quote was from. That's awesome.
Yeah. I just always thought it was because there's this, some people say it was from Proverbs and everything. That's what I heard my whole life until I watched this episode and actually looked it up. Yeah.
I love that. Facts. So we come back from the commercial, and night has passed, and it's now the morning. The sergeant's all dressed again and got his pack on, and he asks Lavinia to come down and to say goodbye and thank you and thanks her for her hospitality. And he says he needs to find out where the road leads. He was up thinking all night and about all the different things and the lieutenant and the things they talked about, and he said, I've just got to continue down this road, I guess. And she's like, "Well, why don't you stay here? She wants him to stay. And he says, no, ma'am, there's nothing. What do you say? Something like, there's nothing I can call my own here. There's nothing I can claim as my own here. And she says, well, you know what's past this is just 50 more miles of places like this, burned out houses and burned out roads. And he says, he said he was thinking that the night, and it got real quiet at one point. The soldiers stopped coming by, and he began to understand that this something's different about it, and he's got to see where this road goes. He said they were Confederate and Union soldiers both, and they were helping each other as they went down this road, which again we'll come back to. And he tells that he's got to continue on, and as he turns to leave, they hear a voice of a man's voice singing that song, "Black is the color of my true love's hair," and Lavinia realizes it's her husband. It's Judd. And she's like, Judd, oh, Judd. And she runs out. It's interesting because she goes out really fast, but she goes out really fast from her stairs in the most southern way possible. Like, she hits those stairs and she pulls up her dress to like go down the stairs, but she does it super fast. So it's almost like funny. She's like
a Disney princess kind of. Yeah. Totally. Cinderella.
Yeah. Down the stairs and runs out to him and embraces him and they kiss and they hug. And again, Judd is just talking straightforward, and he's not like passionately embracing her. He's just kind of relaxed and he's holding her, but it's a really kind of subdued emotion. And so she's like, I didn't dream it could be true. And all these things. And the sergeant kind of comes up and is like, Lavinia, this was our home, but it's not anymore. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, the sergeant knows. And the sergeant kind of acknowledges him and is like, no, I think I understand, Lieutenant. And so he kind of acknowledges them and he walks off.
Lieutenant, sir?
And
was I dead the whole time, sir?
Did I figure this out with my Git box? So Judd is talking to her, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, I understand what? And he's like, Lavinia, you died from the fever. Like, it's time for us to go. Like, we need to go. There's nothing left for us in this house. And she's like, no. She's like, I'm very much alive. Like, you don't understand. Like, she won't accept it, and she rejects it again. And even at this point, Judd starts walking off, and she's like, Judd. She's like pleading for him to come back, and she kind of runs back, and she encounters. I think she stumbles at one point, and she's kind of going through this manic moment, and she's crying and reacting this way, and someone comes to comfort her, who turns out to be Abraham Lincoln, and he kind of lifts her up and he says, "Are you okay?" And he says, as he's talking about what they're experiencing, he kind of just lays out for her that it's okay. I'm on this road too. In fact, I'm the last man on this road, and Judd. Oh, by the way, Judd has said that he's for sure going to wait for her at the end of the road.
Yeah, and Lincoln says he's the final casualty of the Civil War. Right?
Yes, you might say I'm the final casualty of the Civil War, last casualty of the Civil War. And he quotes a line from Caesar. Even says it. He says, "Of all the wonders that I yet have heard, it seems to me most strange that men should fear, seeing that death, a necessary end, will come when it will come." That's from Julius Caesar. Or that's from Shakespeare. Julius Caesar, not Caesar.
That's the Julius that shakes a lot.
Jeez. And he says he's the and I'm the last man on this road. And she finally relents and is like, and then just starts running back after Judd. And we see Mr. Lincoln put his hat back on and regard down the road, and we hear the outro of An Incident on a Dirt Road during the month of April, the year 1865. As we've already pointed out, it's a road that won't be found on a map, but it's one of many that lead in and out of the Twilight Zone.
So what's interesting is that quote from Julius Caesar comes back in Rod Serling's writings after he's gone. His widow produced a movie in 94, made for TV. I haven't seen this. I found it on YouTube and it's in my queue to watch. It's called Twilight Zone, Twilight Zone, Rod Serling's Lost Classics back in 94.
Huh.
And it's found manuscripts is my understanding. And Jack Palance plays a character named Jeremy Wheaton in one of the stories. And he uses that same quote.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting.
The idea is that she found them in a trunk, these two stories that they turned into the movie.
Huh. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I thought so.
So interesting story. I like how they at the end, obviously it reveals they've been dead. They've been dead the whole time. So there are little clues though. So there's little bits like at one point when he was like, why don't you go away from here? This place is no good for you. Like, why don't you stop haunting this mansion? Go to the afterlife or afterwards. And then later on when the lieutenant asks him, how long you've been on this road too? A long time. Yeah. They kind of connect there. And then, at one point, he introduces, when he's talking about the lieutenant to Lavinia, he goes, ma'am, and he distinctly says, ma'am, lieutenant here tried to save my life. Didn't say saved my life.
Right, yeah.
Said tried to save my life, which again I thought was really interesting.
Modern audiences are probably going to figure out exactly what's going on here pretty quickly, but I do feel that this was a pretty major pulling the rug out from under the audience moment in 61 or 2.
Yeah. Because they just hadn't, again, every time you're like, oh, this one's obvious. It's like, it's obvious because this is when they did it. This is the first,
these are the earliest examples. Like, you can go back a little further, maybe like, Dead of Night in the 40s, maybe would be one of the earliest examples I can think of this kind of story being told.
Or some of the old, the Witching Hour, some of those, I'm sure that they had similar type of, Yeah.
But anybody who's just an average TV viewer in the 60s, I don't think is going to be familiar with all those stories.
Yeah. So it's cool. It's and I do like that message that, like you said, I think it's intended to be, like the South was decimated, destroyed. And it did, like, it really got me reflecting a lot on how much anger really, that growing up as a kid in Minnesota, like I didn't really think about the kind of generational frustration or stuff, that trauma that people had gone through in the South, and would definitely, I could see where they would be hanging on to that in some cases. And, we joke about different aspects of this back and forth about people being Yankees or whatever, but like there's stuff that was people's families, It
was also their wealth.
Right.
There's a lot of bitterness because of, you expect to inherit the wealth of your ancestors in a certain way. And I think there was a sharp bitterness when the slave trade was just destroyed for these people.
Yeah.
That they didn't have a massive generational wealth system in place anymore for their white descendants.
Right.
But, like you're saying.
And culture, too, the whole way of life was destroyed. Again, no way justifying any of that. I'm firmly on the side of yes, it's a good thing that all that was destroyed. But it's like as with everything conversation wise these days, trying to understand other people's perspective and where they're coming from, to not agree with them, but to appreciate the feelings that associate what they're feeling, even if you don't have to think any of that is positive. It's just recognizing, so they had to change,
right?
And they rightfully should have, but they also had to.
They had to go through the growing pains of becoming not slaveholders.
Right. Which is that's a consequence of, that kind of life and the stuff that was in place to keep that going.
And the old world, the old world was fine with slavery.
Right.
Like you can go, it's not just America, but like the whole world had to come to Jesus moment on that,
Right.
At one point in time or another.
Yeah.
That
definitely.
should speak to the morality of it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like if you realize that in every culture, there's a point that slavery will be frowned upon. Although there are still cultures, I think, that participate in it. Like there will come a point where there's a reckoning.
Right. I think that's part of,
This too shall
the
pass.
history of so many. Yeah. Right. There you go. So anyway, I just thought it was kind of a pretty good balanced way to show some of that, and that some people still struggle with it and hopefully come to some level of acceptance at some point, like Lavinia at the end.
Get a razor blade and scrape that Confederate flag sticker off of your bumper.
Please. Yeah.
All right.
So that's the end of it. Next week we have
Game of Pool. Jonathan Winters.
I should note for the immature Gen Xers in the crowd that this is the 69th episode that we have reviewed.
Nice.
It's not our 69th podcast, but so we're what are we, about 70? Halfway?
It'll be 70 because we've done two recaps, so we're at 60 or 72 episodes. I mean, right? Once we do a Game of Pool, hard to believe.
And it's the whole series is 150. So we're approaching the midpoint.
Yep,
it's kind of exciting.
Yeah,
very cool.
Then we get to season 4.
Game of Pool is fun. Yeah, and I think this is what I'm looking forward to, because there's a bunch of episodes that I don't remember at all, like even some of these. So
great. 4 is, I think, not necessarily maligned in the most justified way. I think it's still pretty good. But people just are like, why'd you go to an hour? You have to fill all this time.
Right. Yeah. Everything's not as tight and concentrated.
Right. But I'm real interested to see the difference now in this rapid digestion of all these episodes, where all the seasons 1 and 2 and 3 are going to be fresh in my mind starting 4. And I will have all this deep understanding of what's going into it. So maybe I'll appreciate it.
Right on. Sweet. Hey, awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, Freddie. Thanks, everybody, for listening.